My name's Alex Nelson, and I'm a mechanical design engineer here at MAPerformance. My current passion projects outside of work are an Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio. It's kind of my track car and rally device right now for B-roads. And a BMW Z3M Coupe, which I'm putting an S65 V8 in right now with an E92 M3 subframe, and an X5 35D, the diesel one, and just building a soft order project for road trips with big fenders and big tires. I've been into the automotive industry for as long as I've been into art, science, and engineering. The automotive industry actually for me is just a place where those three things come together. I've never actually tried to consider myself like a car guy or anything of that realm. I just like art, science, and engineering, and the automotive space, and particularly MAPerformance, is a great place where all three of those things come together. That ultimately has spurred a love for cars since I was a kid, because as soon as I got into, holy crap, space shuttles exist, how do those work? Then you kind of go, there's engines and lots of stuff, including cars. Oh, there's one on my driveway, I can go modify it. So there's kind of this trickle down from the love of science and the love of design right into cars. And that's been with me for most of my conscious life, I would say. So past projects I've done, a couple years ago, I did a set of turbofans for Larry Chen and 1552 for SEMA. That was a really fun project. You can have a couple look at renders here from Kaisel Salim. Worked with him on that project, it was super fun. I've also done 3D printed headlights, taillights, and shock reservoir mounts for the Industry Garage Street Bandito fully carbon 240Z project, so that's super fun. And personally, I've designed my own air management systems in the past for like bagged cars back when I was a stance kid. And also last season or last year, I was working on my rear turbo build on putting a turbocharger behind the rear axle of an M Coupe track car. Previously in my work experiences, I've worked for prototyping companies in Milwaukee as well as Minnesota. I'm pretty deep into the realm of 3D printing and working for companies like 3D Printing Ally to kind of push that technology right now. Also, I've worked for Porsche doing filming. Porsche Club of America, you might recognize me from a couple films that they've done. Also Das Ziel, which was a documentary of driving on 2-lane roads only from Los Angeles to Minneapolis. And then, of course, working in engineering closer to where I am right now, which is engineering for big oil companies and plugging big oil pipelines to doing automotive designs. So what I do here at MAPerformance is I help the R&D team take a design or a concept and foster it all the way through production, through to the point where we can put it on a car, test it, and then I work with Kyle Larkin to collect data, go through that data, and then optimize the design and iterate until we can ring the bell and order production samples. Once those get here, then we test them, put them through the rigors and the paces of are they what I intended for them to be designed as, and do they perform? And then once that checks out, I give it the okay, and we go to production. I pretty much specialize in trying to help different departments here not only bring prototypes to life, but also occasionally figuring out new production methods to manufacture them, whether it's printing things out of carbon fiber reinforced nylon, designing the 3D printers to print them, or outsourcing to metal 3D printed parts. So a normal day here at MAPerformance for me, I would usually come in and make sure that we've got everything on the docket for today prepared and ready for testing. So if Kyle has to go in and test something, he's got everything he needs. If he doesn't, I'll usually be out there making a prototype or assembling something and making sure that it all fits correctly per my design, making sure that all the O-rings and stuff are where they need to be. Then once that's done and they're all sorted and they can get to testing, I'll usually go about working on my designs further. So checking out, are things that I've designed up to what I like personally. Sometimes I'll literally just sit down with music and just look at stuff or draw it out on paper and, kind of come to terms with myself if I really like a design that's come in for samples. Then once that's done, I usually go ahead and start either figuring out what cars I need to scan and prepare next, or I will help Kyle in testing prototypes and going through data and optimizing previous designs. Then the fun stuff happens where I get to go out and see my stuff getting made. So that would be whether at Max's bench fabricating and welding exhausts together that we've originally seen in CAD from a scan, or going out and checking with the mandrel bending guys if everything's going well, recalibrating dies. Recently, working with 3D printers and designing different 3D printer parts in order to speed up our production. The most complex thing that I encounter when designing for various car parts we make here at MAP is actually twofold, and I'll split it up into two categories. The first one is there's an abstract side, so that's staying in tune with what people like, staying abreast of what the industry is working on, and making sure that what you're designing actually looks relevant to the consumer. That's especially tricky when you work with a lot of awesome people, and there's a lot of awesome cars going around all the time, so you're always in like Mitsubishi world or Nissan world or BMW world. Keeping abreast with the trends is a huge part of my job, and probably one of the most complex. It's why hiring any engineer is something that can be difficult for a company like this. The second part of my job is the physical design side of it. We were always having to come up with new ways to improve upon what OEMs have already gone so far to develop. For example, we were making an intake for the Supra and we just couldn't figure out why it wasn't making power. Then we realized that the factory heat shield works amazingly well at keeping the IATs from being artificially high as the radiant heat goes from the head of the engine into the sensor. So we had to work to develop an even better heat shield than the OEM one, which was a pretty big task. So it's finding avenues for improvement and just always trying to improve on the OEM's design. That is probably the most complex part physically. On a third level, there's also this sort of relationship with all the departments where everyone has these incredible skill sets, and trying to help them all tie together and make one uniform product is another tricky part of working here. It's not a bad thing, it's just always a fun challenge. So my favorite thing about designing parts for MAPerformance is that MAPerformance gives me a lot of freedom to design parts. And you know, we've done things with professional motorsport, and we do make race car parts, and we have a race car. But at the end of the day, everything I'm designing here is for someone to go out and have fun with their car, for someone to go out and modify their car. And knowing that I can be at the root of what someone's eventually going to be enjoying on their drive, or enjoying installing, or maybe receiving as a gift, or giving someone as a gift. That really speaks to me, and why I originally fell in love with modifying and driving cars, and why I like to go on rallies with friends for 5,000 miles, or go, try to make a fender myself. I'm really just helping other people do that for themselves, and that's really not only empowering to my own design philosophies, but also feels great when I get to go home at the end of the day.